And so the final exam is due on the 11th, and it just to study for it. If you haven't already taken it, just review the PowerPoints, the readings from the writing spaces, and the PowerPoints. Um, and that's mostly just all you would need to do, and I can kind of go over that. Have y'all already taken the final exam?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, well, I can just kind of I'll just kind of review over like the types of things to review for that. I started that last time, but I don't think I finished it, so I'm just gonna review the exam myself and just tell you the types of things that you just want to review over. But it's mostly just from the writing spaces articles, and basic things like what a definition of rhetoric, and we talked about ethos, pathos, logos, different types of claims, talked about claims of fact, policy, and value, um, things like that that we talked about or are in the PowerPoints. I was gonna just kind of review over it myself here. So, yeah, definitely just review those writing spaces articles. Um, and those are from like the first two questions have to do with those articles. And then we've already talked about ethos, pathos, logos. Make sure you can identify rhetorical appeals. Make sure that you know what an annotation is, how you would define that. And emotive language. Just make sure you know what emotive language, and that's in the PowerPoint. Um, and And let's see, the types of evidence, just make sure that, so we talked about, facts, case studies, textual evidence, primary evidence, secondary evidence. Those are some of the main types. So case studies, generally, you're looking at a group of people and you are evaluating data surveys. That's another type of evidence. Case studies, textual evidence, facts. Um, Secondary and primary evidence, and expert opinion. Those are all different types of evidence, and I believe that's somewhere. I know it's got to be somewhere in those PowerPoints too, the different types. And we've talked about most of those, and we did use, we didn't really do, I mean, case studies per se, because we didn't really analyze a group of people, but when you were having to learn about the thematic analysis and looking at some of that data, you probably came across some case studies of studying different groups of people in terms of politics or whatnot, maybe the way they vote or something like that. You probably ran across that. Expert opinion is kind of like scholarly opinion. So you have a scholar says this, so that's their opinion. Textual evidence is what it is. It's evidence from a text, so it's credible. And of course, facts are like textual evidence. And a claim is an opinion, fact, or belief. And then we have claims of fact, policy, and value. That claims of fact are already known to be true. They cannot be refuted. Claims of value have to do with I guess, like, you're measuring something like, that, Burger King has the greatest value compared to McDonald's because of something that is more valuable about the products that the food. Something that has to have some sort of measure to it that could be an opinion, but you can still back it up with facts. And then, of course, and beliefs, that opinions, sorry, claims of claims of value, fact, and policy, excuse me. And claims of policy are like, if the government was making a new law or something like that, that you would be you're well, if you're striving for the government to make a new law and say that something needs to be done about, um, the ecosystem or something like that for this reason, that you would be making a claim of policy because you're trying to hope to enact change. So I believe that the different types of claims are in here, and then just like the basic standards of a paper. You know how you write an MLA paper. Like what are the, you want Times New Roman 12 point font, double space, header and running head. And once again, just the definition of rhetoric. And persuasion. We did talk some about exigency. Um, and let's see, signal phrase. That's something else you want to review from the slides as well. Um, that was, something I believe that was in one of the articles that we read as well. And logical fallacies, just review those that you have slippery slope arguments or those types of logical fallacies, if and logical fallacies implying that with the slippery slope, if A is correct, then X, Y, Z must be right too. You're making assumptions and whatnot. But just review the different types of logical fallacies that are in the PowerPoints as well. Inductive and deductive reasoning, that's something that, inductive reasoning definitely helps you to be able to make, and deductive help you to make good claims in your papers. Um, and so inductive reasoning involves using observations to draw general conclusions or principles. And we also have, deductive reasoning. That's the inversion of inductive reasoning. And then just review terms like syllogism or analogy. Um, we already talked about types of claims, and just basic formatting and um, that when you're citing, knowing what to italicize, what not to italicize, things like that. Um, I actually see that I made a spelling error myself in one of the questions I need to fix. Um, and just knowing there's a couple of questions on annotations, which you've just done that, and then also knowing um, the difference between a tentative thesis statement and the final thesis statement. The rhetorical situation is something we've talked a lot about. Who you're writing for, your purpose, media, and the genre, and the rest of it's mostly just knowing how to construct a paper on what a good transition sentence is, things like that. And what, a rudder is, that's another one to make note of. That's about it. So, like I said, that you just want to make sure that um, that you just review those basic things. And like I said, most of it is, just reviewing the writing spaces, articles, um, and whatnot as well. And it may take me a minute to find that little typo. I accidentally mistyped chronological. So if you see that, whenever I'm able to find that, I will update the spelling a typo that I made myself. But anyhow, um, so that's just an overview of the final exam. So once again, just the basics of, mostly from those articles, and just review the PowerPoints, the logical fallacies and types of claims, and knowing what a thesis is. I didn't put a question about, there was in the PowerPoints about different types of thesis statements, but I did not, so I didn't put that um, in the final exam. Just, that the difference between a tentative thesis. So, tentative thesis is when you are working on, writing your statement. And then when you finalize it, that's the last time it's revised, it's your final statement. And just knowing the types of evidence. And so the last few questions are just about the structure of how to write a standard 5 paragraph essay. Um, so for the research paper, let's see. So the research paper is going to be due December 12th, and the outline was already due November 24th. I believe there's still some that have been turned in, and I'm working on getting the annotated bibliographies back. Gotten the majority of those done. Um, and so just the main project is the research paper. So all the assignments you need to be turned in by any missing assignments. And if I know y'all that if you come to these meetings that you have done the four or the three papers we've already completed that are 100 points. But if you, for some reason, you still haven't completed the four, three of the four papers that are 100 points, please do so by the 12th. So all assignments are due by the 12th, and I'm going to be staying up late on the 12th, and well, really it'd be the 13th to try to get grades, input, and everything. Um, and so that's the last day. And then if you have any questions in the meantime, of course, just make sure you send me an email. It is easier for me to find the emails from that are through Canvas. My email A00367631 at Canvas dot sorry not at sorry at alabama.edu, not Canvas, but it is, it's in plus it is through Canvas. So if it pertains to an assignment, it's usually easier for me to, because I can even pull that. It's more easy to pull it up on my phone, or you know e- even when I just log into Canvas on my computer. I do log into my other email as well, but it takes a little bit longer, and it seems to be like there's a lot of emails that come in that for some reason. So it's best if you do just email me through the Canvas, because it pops right up and I can see your question. Or if you need to reach out to me by phone, I'm always available to, take your call by phone too if you have any questions or issues with Canvas or the assignment or anything like that. And I know we did spend time the other week kind of going over how to research um, and using the databases, and might need to, let's see. So this is the structure of the paper. Um, I thought I had put the link to the library's databases. Um, let me just go to let me put that link here. Library. Um, This is actually for a specific professor. Okay, so this is the and all I did. I mean, you don't. It's technically just a shortcut. I just typed in JSCC English 101 library, and it did pop up that this is what you want to use to help you. I know I had a student ask, do we have to just use this? And I said, as long as it's a .edu, a .gov, .org, or .mil, or a valid ebook. Those are perfectly fine. I know sometimes even with Google searches that I'm able to actually find credible scholarly journals, even just using a Google search, or sometimes the Google books as well that are good. But I do strongly encourage you to use the library. And of course, y'all have already gotten your annotated bibliographies done for the most part, I believe, as well. So you already really kind of have your research. So this should already kind of, yeah, if you need any, like say that, you decide you don't want to use one of those sources, then you just need to go back and try to find one here. Or, like I said, just, using, uh, just a regular search to try to find those, but I really highly recommend the Jeff State Library. See where I was trying to figure out where I was on here. Um, I had that assignment pulled up. I'm just going to talk about the structure just for a little bit because I know I talked about the structure some, but that is probably the main thing. So it needs to be 6 paragraphs, at least in length. So 6 paragraphs, and you want, five, at least 5 sentences per body paragraph. You want at least one claim and one citation, at least one claim and one citation. In the outlines that um, sometimes I did see like multiple claims. No, sorry, multiple citations, but there was no claim in between it. So you do want to make sure that if you have another claim, I'm sorry, if you have another citation, you do state a claim before it. So you would analyze the first citation, state another claim, and then cite again. Um, that is, required. Um, and let's see. Okay, so the structure, you want a clear introduction that maps out the context and main points discussed in the body paragraphs proving the thesis. There's a clear thesis statement identifying your stance on whether rhetoric is declining throughout time based on your research on rhetoric and design, with at least 3 main points that you will focus on in each body paragraph. Um, and then remember the first body paragraph, you're just giving context. You still want to transition from the last paragraph, and you want to just kind of present an overview of how did this debate come about, why, and mapping out some of the history. You map out some of the history about how rhetoric came from the ancient Grecian peoples and Aristotle and how it's evolved today, how it's changed. But if you believe that it is being enhanced in our world today, you would obviously be focusing on why. But all you're doing in that first body paragraph is you're going to transition, present an overview of how the debate came about and why it's important. So you want a claim, obviously indicating how the debate came about, and at least try to bring in one citation. I would recommend at least bringing in just one citation in that introductory paragraph, about how the claim, sorry, how the issue came about. So giving some history behind how the debate came about, and then why it's important in our world today. Um, so you want, one claim about the historical context, how did it come about? Um, Bring in a quote or paraphrase. And remember that a paraphrase when you paraphrase that, you are um, putting that um, author's statement. in a way that you are able to just kind of sum it up in your own words without using their sentence structure or any of their language as clearly as possible or the best way you can. So if they use like a compound sentence, you want to make a simple sentence, like everything about it, you should try to make it different, but you're still giving them credit. So you would say that Bloom conveys that, and then state what he conveys by summing it up, and then still cite Bloom and the page number, Bloom 55. And another thing I saw a lot of, and I think I mentioned this last time too, was that most students are using APA to cite, and it's MLA format. So when you do bring in a news source, let's say you're bringing in Harold Bloom, who's talking about rhetoric, and how the debate came about. So you would say, according to Harold Bloom and the article, and then you would put the article title, um, in quotes and write it out. Then you would either sum it up, whatever he's saying, to paraphrase it, or put a quote from his work, and then you would cite Bloom 54 if that was the page you got it from. So you never cite the year. The year is something in MLA that we don't do years, because why the APA does years is because it's, the years that certain studies or case studies have been conducted. It's, based on looking at it from a kind of more of a, sociological or psychological perspective, because APA is used for like psychology courses and sociology, generally speaking. And so, that's important to them to know when certain studies were conducted. And MLA for English courses, we're just concerned with, what is the page number or the paragraph. If you don't know the page number, you can always write Bloom, PARA 5. It was paragraph 5. So that's just something I did see a lot of, and there might have been only just 5 or less students I saw that out of the 3 classes, maybe 5 of them cited correctly with the MLA. And so that's just something that's really important. So when I am looking at your papers, I am really looking at the citation formatting, just because that is really important, because this class is preparing you to write papers for your other college courses, and just knowing how to properly cite is just really important. And um, you'll save you time later on when the professors, if they, they sometimes that they will, if you don't cite correctly, then you just automatically get a very poor grade just because you didn't cite. And of course, if you don't cite at all, that is plagiarism. So that is um, going to be an F if you don't cite at all. In this course, because I have seen that happen, and I don't like to see it happen. I usually at least give you like a D or something if that happens. If you do not cite, this is just an introductory course. Sometimes I have given students a very low C if they really struggle with the citing and the paper, but that's something that, like, that alone is what causes the grade not to be as high. It's just really that. And of course, the content is very, very important. You want your content, and with all the students I've had, I've really never seen content that has not been actually pretty good. That y'all have done a great job with your writing this semester. So it's usually not the content, it's just that I have seen as it is the citing. And if you do have questions about MLA, that even in that Jeff State, let's see if I can find that this here, the plagiarism tutorial. I think this goes over, it should go over formatting as well. Um, just how you format. But when you bring in a new source, so you say according to, or the author and the article states that, and you can give their credentials too. So you would state, Harold Bloom, the prominent literary critic in the article, states that. And then you have these key transition phrases like states or conveys or relays. If you've already cited from the author, I'm just giving an example of Harold Bloom again, you just say Bloom conveys, relays, argues, contends that. then you would cite, and then you would put paraphrase Bloom and the page number. And so that is basically, how you would do that. If you do use the same source again, then you would just say, Bloom relays, they convey, they indicate, they argue, they posit this theory, and then you would explain what it is. Um, I'm not really sure. This is a good video on it. I recommend also, which I know that there's some more research. I think the resources should be the databases. MLA citation guide. So this is your citation categories. That's how you cite, which we've talked quite a bit about in the works cited page, and then this takes you to Virginia Purdue OWL and the if style guide, gun style guide. So this is gives you the information about. Let's see if I can find um, in-text citations. It gives you a sample paper too, which we'll just. I'm just going to click on this and see what the sample paper is. So you see the formatting here, that's double spaced, in their name, the professor, the class, and the date. Here's the title, Toward Recovery of 19th Century Farming Handbooks. We see that centered, that the margins are 1 inch, that's Times New Roman 12-point font. Trying to see here. I think you have to just like scroll down to kind of see. I'm trying to see where their citations are though. Okay, so sometimes with these, I still point out that so there's the citation, but then they do have one sentence after that to analyze it. They do have another claim, and then they do cite again the same source. Um, then they have another claim, and then bring in another source. So there's still things that could be enhanced in this paper too. But if you do bring in a new source, you are supposed to say, yeah, the author's last name, let's say the author's last name was Hurt. So according to Hurt in the article, and then they would say before 1820, the rural community accounted for 80% of consumption of farmers' goods. And then you said Hurt 127. And then you would analyze it. And see, they kind of go on and to the next citation here, you really want to have that balance of course, they have a lot of citations, and this is how they are engaging in a scholarly conversation. You do want to have that. That's why it's really good to have two claims and two citations because you're going to be able to kind of start with a um, more general claim, and then go into something more specific, another scholar that's going to add or contribute to that. But you're not using them to write that paragraph, you're using them to support your own original claims, though. So you have, your transition, some context, a claim that's a little bit more general, a citation, analysis, another claim, and then that's a little bit more specific, maybe a more specific example, and especially with the issue with rhetoric in our world today, you could give examples of how rhetoric is seen in our world today, something specifically seen. You could make that claim, and then the last claim citation is actual evidence from our world today in some of your paragraphs that's going a little bit deeper into something more specific that another scholar has added to that conversation. Um, and so then you would obviously you have your topic sentence, context, claim, analysis, citation, sorry, topic sentence, context, claim, analysis, and then you have another claim, and then your citation, analysis, and then your conclusion. And when you do after you do quote, you do wanna just kind of it's recommended just to explain, like this paper doesn't do that. It's really good if you could sum up what does that quote mean for your reader and then just kind of analyze it, break it down in at least one more sentence or two. And and then you would then lean into your that would lead into the next claim. So it's really good to have at least two sentences and then another claim and then your citation, and then, you would have you say sum up, this shows that, this illustrates that, then you would explain why, and then in a sentence or two, and then you would conclude. And when you conclude, you always explain how that paragraph connects to your thesis statement. And remember that each body paragraph connects to that one main idea proving your thesis. Nothing else should be in that paragraph other than the things pertaining to that one main idea, in a chronological order of importance. And make sure that all of your ideas are well described, that you don't just make a statement and then just jump into the next idea without explaining. So when you do explain, as you constantly are asking yourself questions, what, why, how, you're going to be able to, and then you answer those in your writing without, and that's why you want to avoid too many rhetorical questions, because you're going to be answering those with your own ability to apply logic to um, your research. So you're asking questions, but you're answering them, um, and you're making your statements from that and you're explaining it. And so that's how each point becomes more cohesive, because you're explaining and then that's leading into the next point. So that's why you start off with the a more general idea, and then you're going to end with a more specific idea. And then each body paragraph is based on chronological order of importance from least important, though all of them are important, to the most important. Um, and you can have an opposing view paragraph, even if you don't have a counter argument. You could begin with, you know, some scholars see this from this perspective, and then you explain why, bring in a quote and explain why. And then you say, though some scholars see this can be seen from this point of view for this reason. Then you would give your reason, cite, analyze your citation, and conclude. So that would be a way you could set up an opposing viewpoint in your paper, is to start with that opposing view and then refute it. And then, that I probably would do that more towards the end of the paper, maybe that counter argument, or the middle of the paper. The last body paragraph, you can, it's got to be the strongest point. So it's up to you what you want to do with that last body paragraph, but you want to save your most specific examples and ideas for that last body paragraph. And then your conclusion paragraph, it sums up how the illustrations that you gave prove your point. You don't cite in the conclusion. You've already made all your points, so you don't cite in the conclusion. You can cite in the introduction, but it's not really recommended unless you need to define a term or a concept, or if you just feel like one quote is just really important to explain your point of view, but that's not going to be your thesis. You've got to have your own creative, innovative thesis that you can prove, with your evidence. If there's like a statement that you think is really important, but in general, you want to try to save that for your body paragraphs. So you can cite in the introduction. You would only want to cite maybe once, just because maybe once, or the most I think you should ever cite would obviously be twice in the body, the first introductory paragraph. And that would be if you just like had a really if you had a pretty long introductory paragraph, which you shouldn't want a paragraph that's more than three-fourths of a page. But let's say you had one that was a fairly long one, and you just really felt you had to define those terms, then of course, you would cite those in your introduction so that you don't have to try to define key terms and concepts in your body paragraph. So your reader already is completely aware. And in the introductory paragraph, you want to grab your reader's attention. Why is this relevant today with your topic sentence? And then just giving some historical context. How did this come about? But in general, because you'll explain that in more detail in the first body paragraph about the context. So just in general, explain where this came from in that ancient Greece and how it became relevant in our world today, and like probably 2 sentences, and then you wanna map out those 3 main ideas in the body paragraphs in a chronological order of importance in those 3 sentences, and then you have your, then you can allude to the debate among scholars and then your stance in the last, sentence. Um, that alone is quite a few sentences, so you might just have wanna have 1 sentence for the context, and then you wanna, dive into the 3 main ideas, and then the debate among scholars, and then your stance, and that's still plenty of sentences to have. It's up to you. Um, do y'all have any questions about the research paper? And this is an example of a works cited page. This is cited correctly, and you see the margins. You see that comes after the, so they put notes in this, but it would come after your conclusion paragraph. Also, they should have cited on one line there. So this was an example student paper, and they still did. This student did a good job. It's just there's still some things that you could possibly, and that even they could improve a little bit on this on the formatting. But this is, you have the chronological alphabetical order here. There's no bullets or numbers or anything like that. They just give the MLA citations. And then they, indent after the first line of each citation. Do y'all have any questions about the research project?
No, ma'am.
No.
Well, I enjoyed having each of y'all in my class, and I will be teaching a section of English 102. I think it's like 22241. It's the thing at the bottom um, on the list right now. That I don't even have the shelf for it yet, but I will be teaching one section, if you are taking 102 in the spring. And then one for 102 that we are reading literature. So there's a textbook. It is a Norton anthology book. It's a pretty big book, but it's just a survey course that we're reading short stories and poetry and hang on, but we read 3 plays at the end of the semester. So, we're just moving into actual literature instead of just, how basically with 101, we're looking at kind of more journalistic concepts and things like that and rhetoric and then applying it to literature. And it has different types of literature from American literature to British literature and ancient Grecian literatures even in there. So it has, yeah, a lot of different cultures in that book as well. Um, but like I said, I appreciate all of your hard work and um, if you ever need a letter of recommendation or advice or anything like that, I'm always here. And if you have any questions or have any issues with Canvas or any issues with anything trying to turn in the last assignments, just let me know. Um and like I said, I'm gonna be trying to get those grades in probably the 13th. And whatnot. And so hope y'all have a good holiday season and Christmas and New Year's. And like I said, I hope y'all have a great semester in the spring as well. And I hope y'all have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you. You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You too. Thank you.